Hey, I'm Renee Hobbs.
I'm Catherine Morris.
And what are we doing here today? We're talking to you about Courageous Rhode Island and the Courageous Conversations curriculum. Catherine, what's it all about?
A couple of years ago, thanks to the Department of Homeland Security, we were able to create a program that focused on using media literacy and active listening to reduce the fear and hate that leads to violence. After all of our programs were complete, we turned this into a curriculum that we could then share and people could continue to use.
One of the things I like to do when I introduce Courageous Conversations is take them to the portal. The portal is a really cool place where you can listen in to some of the courageous conversations we had. We reached over 1,000 people with this project. We took their audio to a really cool platform that helps you see the patterns in the conversations. Let's visit the portal and go to the conflict entrepreneurs.
When you click here, it brings you to the portal homepage, and then you can see we have one for each of the conversations that we had as part of our program. And in conflict entrepreneurs, you can see we started off by giving them a little bit of background on what do we mean when we say conflict entrepreneurs. And so then after that conversation, we invited them to work together to identify some examples of conflict entrepreneurs, people who use conflict on purpose for their own pleasure, power, or profit. You can see my favorite part about the portal is that you can listen in, even if you didn't get a chance to be part of these conversations live when they happened. I'll show you how this works. If you click on the quote, you can then listen to it.
And I think every story I see about book banning is sensational, whether it's pro censorship or against censorship. And you have to pick one or the other. You can't really say you're towing a line just because that's not how the conflict is going. You can't be in the middle. You can't see both sides. So all of the things are sensational and very dramatic in how they're presented.
Wow, Catherine, that is fascinating. So they're having conversations in small groups. And what other topics come up?
This person brings up political and media groups are identified as conflict entrepreneurs.
Is political situation, both sides, since they mirror each other by their extreme passion for their position. And it just makes for a curious dynamic.
Indeed, it does.
Yeah. And again, a similar theme with a less observable middle ground.
If you just pay attention to what's going on in Congress, you would think this country that we were all at each other's throats. You would think there was like no place where anybody agrees on anything.
So people had these conversations about the ways in which people attract attention for pleasure, power, and profit. And as you click on those yellow highlights, you can hear how deep and rich the conversation gets.
Absolutely. And another thing I like about the portal is down below, we have then some more of the data that we collected and then some of the highlights. So we did see that people did self-report a knowledge gain, which is great, and that was the goal. And then the highlights I think are really interesting, especially this idea that conflict entrepreneurs come from all walks of life. And I really appreciated that some people were able to identify that they sometimes are a conflict entrepreneur, or it might be their friends, and it's the media. It's a little bit of everyone, and we all fall into those traps. So that reflection I thought was really powerful.
Absolutely. So about 80% of participants said they were able to use what they learned in this program and applied it to daily life. So now we want to show you the curriculum materials and resources that are available if you want to host a courageous conversation with your students, with your colleagues, with your folks at work or church or wherever, because these materials are flexibly designed to be relevant to middle school, high school, college, and adult learners. So let's take a look at all the topics, Catherine, so we can see the full range. We just showed one of the topics, but let's review all the topics that are in the package.
And with Media Literacy Matters, we started out preventing violent extremism, high conflict, conflict entrepreneurs, feelings and facts, the influencers, free speech, hate speech, and censorship, targets of propaganda, and falling down the rabbit hole. And then our last conversation was about how you could replicate these conversations in your own community.
These are still super timely, maybe even more important than when we started this program in 2023. So
Mhm.
you click on that learn more and you get to the collection of materials, which include a lesson plan, a slide deck, a video summary, a reading and discussion questions, a planning guide, and connection to state standards, a wonderful curriculum on teaching active listening, and then a curated list of resources and creative expression ideas for doing project-based learning on these themes.
So you can see this is the lesson plan. So this is for classroom use. It links to the slide deck here. You've got a worksheet to go along with. It walks you through the activities, the assessments, and then your walkthrough of the slide deck.
About 20 minutes of this lesson is designed as small group discussion. After you learn about conflict entrepreneurs, can you find them in your own life? And can you reflect on when messages can become harmful? Because they're not always harmful, but sometimes they are. And then what do people do to minimize the harm? So those discussion questions really guide that small group breakout. But we like to say that the Courageous Conversations curriculum has it's part informational and then it's part discussion based. So these slides really help you create a beautiful sequence of activities.
We have that first 15 minutes of informational content pre-recorded as a video so that you could hear straight from Renee and Pam as we did in our original program, and then follow it up with your own class
I like what you're sharing right here because we always model a media literacy practice. Here we're critically analyzing a documentary and we're using the critical questions of media literacy.
I was just going to show the reading and discussion. If you wanted to have a follow-up activity, we've summarized an article here that your students could read and invited them to answer some discussion questions about this so that they can practice reflecting on media.
I also love the Great Educator Resources collection. And I think in a way, this really helps educators see how these ideas connects to topics like social media algorithms, the attention economy. So we link to some other resources that we think are exemplary. Finally, what do we have to show? Oh, we recognize that project-based learning is one of the very best ways to learn. So we created activities that could lead to media productions and other projects like this one, Exposing Conflict Entrepreneurs. Create a 1 to 3 minute video that introduces the concept, to explore it, and to basically have students demonstrate their understanding of how this idea of conflict entrepreneurship applies to their real life and their social media feeds. So we think the creative energy of hosting a courageous conversation and bringing these topics into your classroom they're vital for media literacy in a polarized world. Is there anything else, Catherine, that we want to remind people about as they explore the website?
I just wanted to add, as many resources as we just shared, we have an equivalent of every single one of those resources for all 9 topics. So those are the ones we could share with you for now, but feel free to explore on our website. And there are also some more resources to come when they get published. You'll have to keep an eye out for those.
Wonderful. Anyway, thanks very much for joining. Thanks, Catherine.